Plus, we're back discussing the legacy of President Barack Obama with our panel. We have, of course, Dr. Jason Johnson, Angela Rye, Dr. Greg Carr, Law and Victoria Burke. All right, I interviewed Mark Morial. The National Urban League put together their report in terms of where they offered grades to the president. Overall, they graded him excellent. One of the areas where they also graded him on was housing, where he got a failing grade on housing. And so here's what Mark Morial had to say about that.
We got no traction on what we thought it was necessary to bring back black home ownership, and that would have been at the very beginning a principal reduction plan, and small business lending and minority business, if you will, overall emphasis we felt was lacking.
All right, folks, on the area of housing, this is one area where I have been highly critical of this administration from day one. 53%, as I said earlier, 53% of black wealth lost to the housing foreclosure crisis. In the first days of his presidency, first 30, 60 days, they went to Arizona to announce a HAMP program supposed to help 3 million people, only helped about 700,000. And this is where black folks got hurt the most. Our wealth was impacted. In fact, even the ability for us to get small business loans was impacted because we didn't have the collateral. Exactly. And so we saw $23 billion in loans handed out. We only got $385 million.
1.7.
This, and I don't care what anybody says, y'all can go check the record. This is where from day one, I hit this administration and say, you must do something, and they simply failed in housing.
He had the lowest rate of borrowing for black businesses of, I think, any president. We can't find anything lower than 1.7. It's embarrassing. This president is not good at issues with regard to poverty at all. It didn't talk about poverty very much over 8 years. We have 38% of black children in poverty. Doesn't like to talk about that issue, and I'm not sure why, because you can't, blame a sitting president. We did have over 40 million people in poverty when he took office, so it's not as if you get blamed for that. But he had no, he had no policy.
And let's be perfectly clear, the reason you had the housing crisis was because of what took place the previous 10, 20 years, when you had the whole issue of the subprime loans. But you had African-American, you had civil rights activists and African-American activists who were saying, look, do a moratorium on foreclosures. Also, force the banks. I had Sean Donovan, the HUD secretary, on this show. I said, how did you agree to a policy where the banks voluntarily will rework loans? They had no intentions in doing it. And then, in fact, what happened? They took TARP funds. They actually saved themselves and did nothing, frankly, when it came to saving folks when it comes to homes. Angela.
So a couple of things here, and again, drawing a contrast. So there's also something that the CBC did that the president later took credit for because he realized how important it was. That was the creation of offices of minority and women inclusion in every financial services agency in the federal government. I think that we will see the long-term impact of that, but it's not one that has immediate impact. That is major. Wait,
no, I can't. No, I can't. No, I can't. No. This is why it's important. Black people at home, I need to help y'all. When the CBC fought for that, the White House fought them on that, and in fact, y'all gotta say, I got a phone call late at night saying, hey, are you gonna talk about this on Tom Joyner tomorrow? I said, no, I'm gonna talk about it on Monday. And what ended up happening was they fought for it. They withheld their votes in the House Financial Services bill. They fought to keep it in the bill, but his was crazy.
It ended up in that African Americans accomplishments report.
Still ripped them on that very
It don't matter.
No.
They're still going to be the Constitution.
No, but I'm making the point.
I hear you.
Black people ripped the CBC for fighting for $4 billion.
I
Go
understand.
ahead.
And you'll see the impact of it later. Here's my contrast. Now that he didn't took all my little shine, the contrast is black asset managers. And the fact that the president had so much in his power to do to ensure that there were opportunities for black asset managers in TARP going through the Treasury Department. Those protections were not there. That is something that the CBC members on financial services also fought for.
And Greg, let me say this here, Jason, he's on that particular point, 2010, I'm at a meeting with the Department. No. I'm at a meeting with the Department of Treasury in 2010, and I'm told that black firms outperform white majority firms on the management of TARP funds. My response was, are they going to get to manage more money? And it was silent. So to your point, black folks in Hispanic firms outperformed and did not get more money to manage.
And here's what we're seeing with that lack of money, lack of access, and lack of loans. All these conversations we're having now about gentrification, you can see it on 8th Street in DC and all these different parts of the country.
Yes, sir.
Black people in Gen X and millennials, we are not in a position to buy the homes of our aging grandparents, which are now being bought right from under us for millions of dollars and flipped over and eliminating black neighborhoods throughout the country.
Got to go to HBCUs here. National Urban League gave him a grade of I believe it was fair. I told Mark he was dead wrong on a pay. I mean, this was a contentious issue. This was a contentious issue for all of his 8 years. They gave him a fair. And I said, and Greg, the Parent Plus loan deal.
Okay, let's walk across the bridge.
Go ahead.
The two things are related. I mean, everything you've been talking about in terms of access to capital, in terms of being able to hold on to your home, and then on the HBCU side, the Plus loan debacle makes it almost impossible for many folks to come out to be able to even afford to go to school. I mean, you know, Jason, you're at a public HBCU, Morgan State. That should be affordable. I'm at Howard University. We have kids now who literally could not come back to school, and it took pressure. And forget the White House Office of HBCUs, which was just about moribund. It was ridiculous. Even William Harvey came out to criticize.
And that was shocking.
He was forced to be at Morehouse when President Obama sat there and spoke to Morehouse graduates and lectured them about how they needed to work hard. I was like, half the brothers who aren't here at graduation now because you gutted the Plus one loans. And all too many African-American leaders didn't want to criticize him for that because that's when
the president single-handedly.
Lauren, you reported this when he met with the CBC, and he said in that meeting, and folks, y'all can get mad all y'all want to, he said if these HBCUs can't graduate these kids, they should shut down. Well, that ticked off every CBC member sitting in that room.
The president has the attitude, and fortunately, it's very unfortunate for the first black president to have done this, but he had the attitude that HBCUs, for some reason, had to perform magic. I mean, these are schools who take on the toughest students. He cost them $150 million and interrupted the education of 28,000 kids. Because of some, Parent Plus loan decision to make the loans harder, so you couldn't get a loan. And then they want to lecture and patronize black parents and say, we're saving you from yourselves. It was the worst piece of policy for this administration. It was embarrassing, and it's part of his permanent legacy.
So, really quickly, I think the other thing that was an affront to HBCUs is the 2-year free college program that it never got off the ground. But it would have been a detriment to historically black colleges.
All right,
Kickstart your day at 7 and get the news you need from the perspective you want. NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Every weekday morning at 7 on TV 1.